This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the 3D Security and Training Academy studios.
Senator Orrin Hatch in Utah, Mr. Balanced Budget. He wants to apply that common sense economic principle of balanced budget.
And Senator Orrin Hatch has many other issues on his mind as well. He's been a longtime supporter of Sarah Palin, and she has returned the favor. Today, we hear from Senator Hatch as he gets ready to work with a new Senate come January. We'll also discuss Ferguson, immigration, the global warming hoax, adoption, and more. Sarah Palin offers a beautiful Happy Thanksgiving message. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson is coming up from Virginia. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman in Missouri. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. The Palin Update is sponsored by 3D Security and Training Academy. Learn more at 3dsta.com. First, we welcome Orrin Hatch to the show. He was endorsed by Governor Palin back in 2012. He won that re-election bid, and now he gets set to welcome in some new colleagues to the U.S. Senate, some of them Palin-powered. Senator Orrin Hatch from the great state of Utah, welcome back to the program, sir.
Well, nice to be with you.
Sarah Palin, of course, endorsed your latest re-election bid a couple of years back, and I know you hold great admiration for her as well. Talk a little bit about the governor and what she's meant to you and vice versa.
Well, I think the world over. I think she's a gutsy, smart, intelligent, beautiful person. And she has her detractors, of course, because she stands for something. Whenever you stand for something, you're bound to have some detractors. So she's going to have her share of them. But I'm one of her supporters. I think she's a great human being.
Well, you certainly have been, and you've stuck with her all the way, and I know that's appreciated. And you know, a lot has happened of late, sir. The Senate turned bright red after a big Election Day wave against Obama and his policies. Have you been able to take a look at some of the newcomers that won Senate seats, specifically Joni Ernst of Iowa and Ben Sasse of Nebraska, both Palin-endorsed candidates that are coming in to give you a hand?
Yeah, I sure have. In fact, I've gone all over the country raising money for them, and I think they've said that Portman from Ohio, Senator Portman, and I raised about a third of all the money that went into the National Republican Senatorial Committee. So I'm well familiar with all of them. We've got a great group of new senators coming in here, and I'm just tickled to death about it.
What do you think of Joni Ernst, first woman-elected senator of Iowa? She has a military background, and I mean, you get a lot of a sense of her character. What, a day or two after the election, she wins the election, and then there she was doing her service because she's still a reserve.
Well, I helped raise money for her, but I got to say this. I met her after the election was over. She's impressive. She's not only a very attractive human being, but she's got guts and ability, and I think she's going to make a real difference in the United States Senate. I think it's going to be a great thing for the country. With regard to Sasse, I think he's turned. I was a very strong supporter of his as well. He's a very, very fine person who I think is going to add a really, really good dimension to the Senate. He's an outstanding, decent, honorable man.
Yeah, and he has that interesting background, too, right, because he's had some experience as far as working with in Washington, but not so much that people would consider him someone that they, want to get out of Washington. But also he's a guy that they've talked about Obamacare. He's a guy who's really gone after it hard and really gives you a step-by-step of what should be done instead of just saying, oh, this is no good, but then not having something to replace it.
What's good about both him and Ernst, and I have to say the rest of them, is that they're all very intellectually smart people, attractive people personally, intellectually smart, rocked in absolute belief in the free market system, and in what we consider a conservative constitutional way towards the law. So I'm pretty impressed with all our people that we were able to get. I just feel bad about Ed Gillespie. I went down to Richmond to a fundraiser, and we raised, I think, in that fundraiser, $425,000. And at that point, nobody thought he was going to win, but he outlined how he was going to win. And I thought to myself, my gosh, this guy can win this. And I tried my best to get more money to him, but he just lost by a very, very small percentage. And that would have been a tremendous race, too. But I think there were a number of them who were just outstanding races.
That's a good point you make, though, Senator, that, we talk about all the wins, of course, but there were also some near misses that, shows the Obama administration that, hey, some states that you had some success in recently may be turning back the other way again. Some history made, too, on Election Day. Tim Scott of South Carolina, the first black senator elected in the South since Reconstruction. And Scott, not only Palin-backed, but also a Republican.
Yeah, great man. He's served for a short time here, but had to run again, and I think he has to run again in a short time.
Right.
He's a great addition to the Senate. We're just proud as can be of him. There isn't one of the new senators that I don't think is weaker. They're all good, every one of them, and naturally we met them as we went through orientation before we got back into the lame duck.
Then just days after the landslide, Obama obviously, to paraphrase Miley Cyrus, didn't get the memo, apparently, because he comes out with this lawless stand on immigration and amnesty. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's hard to believe that any president would try and get away with what he's doing there. He has acted so independent of what constitutional principles are from time to time that I think it's a bad situation. One of my favorite cartoons is by Ramirez of the Investors Business Daily. He has President Obama standing there with his arms folded and Jimmy Carter hanging on to him saying, thank you. Now I'm not the worst president in the history of the country.
Yeah.
And, there was some truth in that. I think that's why that fellow is such a great cartoonist, because he catches that little bit of truth. I've been surprised at Barack Obama. He's a likable person. He's certainly a bright man, but for somebody who claims to have taught constitutional law, he sure didn't know what the principles are.
Yeah, not only ignoring it, but usurping it, and really just, as Sarah Palin put it, after this mandate of an election on Tuesday, it feels like he's really giving the middle finger to the voters because he saw what happened, what people want, which is not his policies, and here he goes and says, you know what, I'm going to ram it home anyway I need to. Well,
I have great empathy for trying to solve this immigration problem, but you don't do it the way he's done it.
Right.
I think the Congress was prepared to start working on that now that the Republicans have taken over both houses. And they would start with let's take care of our borders first, and I believe that he's made that very, very difficult for members of the Republican Party and even some Democrats because of this, I think, illegal approach that he's taken.
What do you make of this madness in Ferguson, Missouri?
Well, I wasn't there and I don't know a lot about it, but it seems to me that the prosecutor's explanation of the grand jury was pretty impressive, I thought. I heard every word of it. I listened to it at the time, and he brought out that there were honest witnesses there who had told exactly what happened. And, but I don't blame African Americans in some of these areas where they've been mistreated and not given the liberties that they should have. I don't blame them for being upset, but to distort that to the point that they're trying to undermine the rule of law, that's something that gives me great concern. I have empathy for African American people because they have gone through a lot of hell, and I was raised with African American kids in Pittsburgh as I grew up. We didn't even notice a difference. We liked each other. We played ball together, and I was on the basketball team. I was the captain of the basketball team, and we had some wonderful black kids that played with us. I think it's the adults that really have made that such a tremendously tough issue. But you don't help that issue by doing injustice. And the grand jury, every one of those persons must have known that they would be highly criticized. The easy way out would have been to just return, an indictment. But I think the fact that with blacks on the number of blacks on the on that particular grand jury to return the decision as they did, I think anybody who has any brains has got to stop and say, well, there must have been something to their position.
Yeah, and you talk about McCullough. He was great. I mean, mapping it all out and really detailing it. I mean, you don't even have to know much about it. After hearing him, you would know a heck of a lot about it. And I mean, the biggest point was, hey, these folks heard from every single witness. They saw every piece of evidence. Meantime, you have athletes and movie stars, going to Twitter and putting their 2 cents in when they don't know really anything about it other than what they're given from the media. So,
well, and they knew that they'd get much more criticism by not indicting than by indicting. I mean, they could have easily been badgered into indicting it if they weren't honest people. But the thing that bothers me is that the governor knew there was going to be rioting. He'd seen some evidence of it before, and he brings in the National Guard the day after, the day after the day after, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And I'll never understand that. I mean, I would have immediately had National Guard down there just to make sure that nobody, disturbs the peace like people did. And there's something really, really wrong here. I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but I'm very disturbed by what happened there, both before and after.
Yeah, that, of course, Governor Jay Nixon, a Democrat.